Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Jason, will getting really strong on presses thicken my wrist and forearm bones? I know resistance training will increase bone mass / density. No, it increases density, right? That's why it increases mass. It does not do anything for size. Let's finish the question. But will this be to a noticeable degree? I am over the aesthetics game, but have tiny wrists. They're 16 centimeters circumference at 5'9", early intermediate, which makes everyone assume I'm fragile and weak. This pisses me off a little bit, and I have large hands and short muscle bellies, long tendons on my forearms to make things worse. Particularly as my forearms are growing, it would be awesome to have a light at the end of the tunnel. And conversely, will my wrist size limit my strength potential? Thanks, Jason. The only way to increase wrist size is to get fat. That's it. That's all you can do. There is no muscle over your wrist, right? It's just tendons. I mean, tendons can thicken a little bit, but you're not going to add an inch of diameter to them by doing that. And all right, guys, bone density, right? It's bone remodeling internally that you get from lifting weights. You're going to add bone mass, but it's not going to create, like what you're thinking of is outward hypertrophy, right? It's just internal. It turns some of the various little caverns in the spongy material just more dense. That's what's happening there. There is no increase in visible size. Even if you go from a 200 bench to a 400 bench, you will not see any measurable size changes on your wrist. The only way you're going to get thicker wrists is to just get fat, right? Fat people have thicker wrists because they store a little fat under the skin, but they don't even store that much. That's it. That's all you can do. Quit worrying about it. Will it limit your strength? Yes, there will be some strength potential limits on it. But what we mean there is, if you have smaller than average wrists, you will probably never bench press 500 pounds, right? You'll probably never bench press 500 pounds. If you have smaller than average wrists, odds are you're probably never going to bench more than 350 without wrist wraps. Right? In fact, like me, for example, I pretty much have to start wearing wrist wraps when I start getting to 300 plus. I have relatively small wrists, all things considered. I don't actually have large diameter wrists. I never have. And I have slightly long forearms, so I understand what you're talking about. I'm in a similar situation. I would almost have to do the conversion in my head. I don't know if mine are quite 16 centimeters. I'm used to thinking inches. But yeah, so you're going to have to wear wrist wraps on your heavy benching if you start getting fairly strong. You're going to have to do that. Nothing you can do about it. Get over it. You need to accept that you're never going to have a 550 bench press with small wrists. So what? Get to 400. 400 might end up being your limit if you don't have the bone structure. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So live with it. Nothing you can do about it. You can't ever change your bone structure. All you can do is improve bone density. All right, next question. Hey Jason, first off, thanks for all your hard work. We really appreciate it. It takes a lot of dedication to crank out 3 videos a day. My question, I am currently running a 3x5 program and I'm wondering if it is feasible to incorporate Bulgarian style training for one specific lift. Meaning I was thinking about training the press 5 to 6 days a week while continuing my 3x5 as normal for all my other lifts. Thanks. Well, I appreciate that, brother, but keep in mind, 3 videos a day isn't that hard. It's not that hard. This is more or less my full-time gig. 3 videos a day plus, not really a big deal. Again, when it becomes your job, guys, trust me, you can find the time to do that. I'm surprised some of these bigger channels don't actually make more videos than they do. Now, to answer your question, yeah, you can absolutely do that. Like, especially if it's an easier lift like the press. Because again, the press is not going to use as much muscle mass as something like a deadlift. I think it's pretty easy to incorporate it into a daily Bulgarian while doing a full body, something like 3x5 the other 3 days. I think it's totally reasonable. I think you can pull this off, and I think that your press will probably increase substantially if you do this. And it's not a bad idea, particularly on a lift like that, because I think the press, for a lot of guys, these natties who are seeking to try to look slightly closer to how enhanced guys look, putting an enormous focus on the standing press is probably a good idea, because it hits all the basically drug muscles. It hits them hard. It works them very, very heavily. So yeah, I can help you with that as far as trying to get as close to proportioned as those guys. And it's just an all-around badass and useful lift. All right, next question. Jason, is there an alternative to the press besides doing it seated? I'm moving into a new apartment soon and was thinking about setting up a home gym in the basement. Only problem is the ceiling is too low for standing press and a power rack as well. So I would have to think of an alternative, as unfortunately I can't spare any of the apartment rooms for it. This really sucks, as a standing press is one of my favorite exercises. Like we just talked about it last, it's a fantastic exercise. All right, don't do them seated. I don't believe in those Z presses either. I think that Z presses will hurt you eventually. I don't think they're a particularly safe exercise. I don't think seated presses are either. I think most people who develop shoulder problems and impingements and everything else, I think it's coming from the seated presses, not the standing ones. That's my opinion on it. What are your options? Well, is to either not do the press, right? So not do the press, or drag your barbell and some plates into another room just on the day you do the press. Find some space somewhere in your apartment, right? There's going to be some floor space in your living room or something. You're only going to have it there 10 minutes or so, right? Just doing a few sets. And clean it up, right? Clean it up. And here's what I'm going to say. You should be able to, without even learning a clean technique, as long as you're not doing maxes on the press, anything that you can do 3 to 5 reps with, you should be able to learn to clean that up without even any coaching on the clean. To be honest, you should be able to just muscle clean that up if you have any reasonable strength base. So just take it into another room and do that. And if that's not an option, you're probably going to have to forego the press for now. Just is what it is, brother. All right, next question. Hey, coach, can an individual improve performance and work capacity whilst only eating at maintenance? I know trying to improve work capacity in a deficit is an exercise, and futility and bulking tends to provide the best environment for this. So I'm just wondering if it can be done effectively at maintenance versus bulking. Thanks, Jason. Okay, yeah, as far as work capacity goes, the more calories you eat, the easier it is to increase work capacity, because you have actual fuel for your training. Now, the exception could be someone who's particularly fat, right? Like you guys saw me slowly working on increasing work capacity whilst very, very slow cutting and doing so at above 20% body fat, right? That's totally doable. Is it going to be as fast as you could do it when you're bulking? No. And I'm going to say it's the same thing when it comes to your maintenance. Trying to improve work capacity at maintenance, I'm going to say how effective it's going to be is going to be largely dependent upon how much body fat you have. If you are very, very lean, like I'm going to say if you're under about 12% body fat and you're at maintenance and trying to improve work capacity, it's going to be a very slow process because your body simply lacks a fuel source to do so. But again, what you need to remember also, increase your calories to accompany it. In other words, when you start trying to do things to increase your maintenance or increase your work capacity, your maintenance calories are going to go up. So you need to be adjusting accordingly, or you're going to find yourself in a deficit, and then you're going to struggle with this again, particularly if you're not carrying a fair amount of body fat already. So again, there's kind of a continuum here rather than just a hard line. All right, next question. Hey coach, I feel like I'm training hard and have nothing to show for it. I do an upper-lower split working out 4 days a week, alternating hypertrophy days of 8 to 10 reps, which there is no such thing as hypertrophy days, with strength days of 4 to 6 reps for barbell lifts. I focus on training and I don't mess around doing random stuff. Every exercise has a purpose and reason. Besides DC training, I have never done any organized routine like 5-3-1 starting strength or any novice program, and it shows since my lifts are 275 bench, 355 low bar squat, and 455 conventional deadlift, and a 135 times 6 standing press after 5 years. Should I stop what I'm doing and hop on a basic program? Or is novice lifters defined by the number of years spent training or the numbers they hit? Guess it's a wake-up call, but I'm getting discouraged trying to figure things out, and I feel like I'm passing the point of making progress on a novice program. Any advice or insight would be really appreciated. Thanks. Yeah, here's the problem. You're trying to do concurrent training when you're trying to get to a certain threshold still. All right, concurrent training should be reserved for pretty advanced lifters. I'm going to be honest with you. I think concurrent training works. I think it can be effective, but it is not for making quick progress. Concurrent training always yields slow progress because it's generally intended to be for more advanced lifters. That's just is what it is. Now you're at a point where you could run concurrent training successfully, right? Because you're out of your novice phase at this point. But yeah, it might be time for you to go on a more structured program. You need to go on a more structured program. And it's just as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Because again, if you're spinning your wheels here and you're doing a concurrent setup and you've been at 5 years, and I mean, your lifts aren't unreasonable. I'd like to see them a bit higher for 5 years of training, but they're not unreasonable. But yeah, if you want to push it to that next level, you're going to need to do a different program. Start looking around towards some of the various intermediate strength programs. But as far as hopping around rep ranges in the same week, if you're floundering on this, and it sounds like you are, stop messing with the concurrent training. Run something else. Run something else because you're not responding to this, or at least the way that you have it structured. And I can't tell you what's wrong because we don't know anything about your full program or what you're doing. But again, it might be time to drop this idea. And you need to drop the idea of hypertrophy days. That's an outdated concept. Even the top experts right now in the field of hypertrophy don't even believe that there's a hypertrophy range anymore. They don't. The data just doesn't support it. So again, focus on your strength again for a while if you want your strength numbers to go up. So go on a purely strength-oriented program. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.